Welcome to Impact Makers Radio, featuring industry thought leaders sharing problem-solving insights to help grow your business and live the life you love. And here's your host, Stewart Andrew Alexander.
Hi, and welcome to another Let's Talk Divorce conversation. And on this segment of the show, ladies and gentlemen, I am just over the moon, so pleased, because we finally have family law attorney Dave Bunger, owner of the Bunger Law Firm PC, and he's calling in all the way from Dallas, Texas. Now, Dave, who is considered to be somewhat of a leader in the area of family law, is here today to talk to you about a very interesting topic. See, Dave has taken the time out of his busy day to come and speak to us about how to find a good family attorney. So, if you are one of the increasing numbers of individuals in the Dallas, Texas area, and you feel you might be able to relate to today's topic, it might be a good idea for you just to down tools, log out of Facebook, quit the Twittering and Instagramming or anything else you might be doing which may cause a distraction. And you might even want to, grab a notepad and pen and get ready to take some notes as we listen in to what Dave has to share with us today. So with that said, let's not keep him waiting any longer. Welcome to the show, Dave.
Thank you so much, Stuart, for having me on your program. I'm very appreciative of that. What a wonderful program that you have, and I'm glad to be a part of it today.
And we are so happy to have you on as well, Dave. We understand just how busy you are over there in Dallas, Texas. So with that said, let's make the best use of our time. Let's jump feet first in. The water is fine, Dave. Briefly, in your own words, describe the kinds of people who you serve and the various types of situations they find themselves in when they reach out to you for your help.
Most of my clients come to my office asking me for help that are experiencing either a difficulty with a divorce, that is a dissolution of their marriage, or they're having difficulties in what we call a SAPS, or a suit affecting the parent-child relationship, and when there's no marriage, but the relationship is ended and they're fighting over the custody of their children. And so these folks come into my office and they need a lawyer that can assist them both with the legal aspects of it and is also, as well as some of the emotional problems and all the peripheral things that seem to be categorically involved in these kinds of litigious and often very contentious kinds of legal problems that these folks have.
So thanks for sharing that with us, by the way, Dave. Now that we have an idea of the people who you help, those people who walk into your office and are seeking your assistance, before we go any further, it must be said that anything you share today is not legal advice or legal assistance. It's purely for the purpose of disseminating information. Would you care just to expand on that yourself very briefly, Dave?
Yes. Under our rules, we cannot give legal advice unless we would have been retained as counsel in some way, and that we're acting as that person's attorney. So yes, anything that I say today is for general educational purposes and not to be taken as legal advice about any specific things they should or should not do with respect to their own personal legal problems. Fantastic.
Thanks for sharing that with us, Dave. So with that said then, Dave, when you think about those individuals who come to you for your help, what's the most common, and I'm sure there are so many misconceptions that you come across, but what's the most common misconception they have surrounding the topic of finding a good family law attorney?
That's an excellent question. The most common misconception, I call it the bulldog scenario, and that is they think that the best lawyer for them is an aggressive bulldog. I've actually been asked on a few occasions, are you a bulldog? No, I've got 2 legs and 2 arms. I'm a human. But what does that mean? Well, they think that aggression in an attorney is the best way. And I say no. Sometimes you have to have the will and the ability to be a litigator and fight in court and zealously represent. But the idea of being aggressive can also have a very counterproductive effect. Because if all we do is file motions and expect hearings and do all these kinds of things that cost our clients money and keep the thing very contentious, it doesn't resolve itself very easily. So I disagree with that misconception that we must be bulldogs. We must be very, very assertive, and at times we have to have the ability to stand our grounds and zealously represent our client. But most of the time, the best way to resolve the issues and get the clients as close to what they want is simply to be calm and collected and try to entertain both sides of the party's issues and try to work something out amicably.
So based on what you just shared with us then, Dave, and obviously keeping your client's confidentiality in mind, please share an example or even a case study, so to speak, of how you have helped or even how you would go about helping somebody who had that misconception, that challenge that you just described, and what kind of transformational results you were able to, or in general, would be able to gain for them.
Well, I've had clients that have come to me after they've been represented by other attorneys, and they were dissatisfied on two bases. One, they felt like they spent a lot of money because oftentimes an aggressive attorney does practice in motion practice. They file things, they spend a lot of time on discovery that's not necessary, and then the outcome is usually not very satisfactory because it's so drawn out. And the second thing is they found that the person didn't seem to care. They confused caring with aggression or being very tough towards the other party. Right. And when they meet with me, they find out that I care about my clients, but I'm also a big enough guy that I can handle the fight if I need to, but I'm more concerned about doing what's best for my client. And that goes a long way. So I've had several clients that have actually hired me after they've been involved in litigation with other attorneys, and they just say, I wish I'd have hired you first. And that's the primary thing, is we're all people, we're human beings, but that means that lawyers are different. Each lawyer has a different way of approaching every single concept. Mm-hmm. And so I try to approach things with a very caring, tactful kind of manner, and I'm not afraid of a courtroom, and my clients immediately recognize that. But I say that's kind of a last resort. We don't want somebody in a robe or 12 people in a jury box making decisions for us, do we? Let's avoid that if we can. But if we have to, we'll get in there and we'll fight. And all of my clients that I can think of that have come to me after that situation they've experienced have been very satisfied, not necessarily with the outcome, because that's a different issue, but satisfied with my approach to their case.
So where do you think this school of thought comes from then? Where does it originate in the general public's mind that a bulldog, as you called it, the bulldog scenario type attorney is the choice to make? Where does that come from?
Easy. Boston Legal, Matlock, Law and Order, all these shows that do a kind of an injustice in representing how the real litigation process takes place. I mean, let's face it, Boston Legal, they file a case in the morning and they're in trial in the afternoon after lunch, and that's ridiculous. It takes 6 to 10 months to get into a courtroom. But it's that kind of mentality that the good lawyers are the ones that are aggressive. They lean forward at the counselor's table when they ask the opposing party. Everything I do when I question an opposing party is conversational. I don't have to yell at them at the stand to make my point. It's the questions. And so I think that misconception comes from the media, a kind of a lack of understanding of what the process is really like. And it's really, most importantly, courts don't like aggression. They don't like people to act outside of what is considered decorum of the courtroom. But a lot of people kind of think that if I have a guy that's going to be mean and I tell my clients, I know I'm kind of tangential, but I tell my clients that if I know the lawyer on the opposing side, if it's a man, I shake his hand. If it's a woman, I give her a hug. We get along. Lawyers need to get along. And I demand that my clients find a way to behave when they're around their soon-to-be ex. That is how it must be, right. And especially if they have kids. So I think the media kind of messes this up, and people think that the only way to win is to have the toughest lawyer. And then they kind of get messed up with what the definition of toughness. And Stewart, I can answer that question. The first thing a tough lawyer, a good family lawyer must be, is they must have an understanding of the law. If you don't understand the family code, whether it's Texas, New Jersey, New York, it doesn't matter, whatever jurisdiction you're in, if you don't understand the family code, you can't represent your client based on those facts. So that's extremely important. Tough lawyers know the law. Second, and I think this is probably the most important issue in being a good family lawyer, is you must be able to think outside the box. Courts and judges are very happy to agree with outside thinking as long as it's not illegal in the agreement and as long as the agreement is in the best interest of the children. So being able to think outside the box, and I do that every day in my practice. And then thirdly, I've mentioned this before, but you must remain calm. Help your clients remain calm. To me, those three areas are the way to be a tough and effective family lawyer, and that's what I'd be looking for if I had to hire one.
As a reminder, ladies and gentlemen, my guest today is family law attorney Dave Bunger, owner of the Bunger Law Firm in Dallas, Texas. And he's here today talking about how to find a good family law attorney. And he just spoke about some of the misconceptions that are out there. So let me ask you this, Dave. With people, the people in mind, the people who you help, those individuals who are listening in right now, what are some of the pitfalls or misguided truths, so to speak, of, what they need to be aware of, no matter what they believe to be true, no matter what situation they find themselves in?
Excellent question. Excellent, really, because the most important thing that people have in terms of pitfalls is the idea of outcome versus the lawyers assisting them. And what I mean by that is, most of the time in a divorce where there's property or children, not any one party is going to be 100% satisfied with the outcome. There's two people. You can't cut a kid in half. You can't cut a house in half. And so there has to be a way in which things get divided. And so most problems that clients have, first, is they don't think their lawyers care about them. And second, they don't like the outcome. But if they know that their lawyer cares about them and is really trying their best, it helps them understand that the outcome may not be exactly what it is that they want. So that's a major pitfall that most clients have, is they just don't understand. And I think a lot of lawyers forget to explain to them the law and what the judges have to do. And if you do that, it kind of helps to lessen the blow, if you will, of what the pitfalls may be. For example, I want sole custody of my kid. Well, you're not going to get sole custody of your kid. There's no reasons. Okay, my husband beats me every day. Okay, you're going to get sole custody of your kids. See, not understanding the nuances of how the facts work. Some people, just because they're so angry, they want sole custody, or they want the house and the cars and all of that. And those are the pitfalls. But if a lawyer takes their time and explains to them how the facts are going to be interpreted by the trier of facts and how that is going to apply to the law, it helps them understand what those pitfalls might be and how to really prepare for it.
So I'm sure there are so many pitfalls that you could share with us today. Dave, you just shared one right there. Could you just share, let's say, 2 or 3 quick fire pitfalls, misguided truths that was going to be of use to our listeners today?
Okay. The most common one that I can think of that happens is, I'm the mother. The dad shouldn't have any rights to my child at all. Mm-hmm. And that is absolutely a misconception. Things are changing. That's wrong. Dads have rights. They may not have the same rights at the end of the day as the mother does, because somebody has to have full custody of the child in most cases. So that's a major pitfall. The other one is, if my husband or wife doesn't pay child support, they don't get to see my kids. That gets a lot of people jammed up. Right. They don't understand that those two things are not contingent upon one another. And so that's a misconception. And then the third one is, sometimes a lot of people think, well, I didn't want a divorce, but he did. I should get more out of the divorce than he did. Mm. Well, that can't be true. For example, in some states, and especially in Texas, if a person is at the fault of the divorce and they did something under our code that allows them to file for a fault, we can ask the court for a disproportionate share of the distribution of the marital estate. But keep in mind, it has to be proven that that's the reason it happened. So a lot of people think, well, I didn't want a divorce, I should get more. Based on that, that's a misconception. Just on that alone is not enough to say they're going to get more out of the estate than others. So there's a lot of kind of intricate facts that would come into that for the court to make that kind of decision. But that's a misconception that people have.
So we're going to speak a little bit about your backstory, your personal story, in a short while, Dave. But for now, you've got me curious. How many years have you been a practicing family law attorney?
I've been practicing law for 10 years.
In those 10 years then, Dave, you must have helped hundreds of people. I'll just assume that you've helped hundreds of clients in their situations when they've come to you, they're considering their options for divorce. When you think back to those clients, what's been the most important thing to you on a personal level? What does it give you when you're able to create that transformation that they were looking for when they initially reached out to you? And how does all that make you feel?
if I know that my client understands that I do care about them and I am deeply concerned about their case, and they have some measure of satisfaction with at least the representation that I give them, that's what I'm looking for. I mean, I know that I can't make them 100% happy at the end of the day because that's impossible, but if they know that I've worked for them and I've really tried to help them, that keeps me going.
Right. So when somebody walks out of your office eventually, the case closed, how does that make you feel when you know it's been a successful case then, Dave?
Tremendously helpful and happy, especially if it was a difficult case. And I've had several of those where, they review me and they say, he saved my life. I mean, that's a little bit, I think, exaggerating, and I didn't save their life. But for them, for that person, it was that important that I was there for them. And that is, that's better than money. And it really makes me feel like I'm doing the right thing, because this is a tough job. Family law is probably one of the hardest areas of practice for the attorney I can think of, because it's just not a happy ending. The only happy ending family lawyers have is an adoption. So everything else is just constant fighting. And so when I know that I have my client and he or she is okay and they move on, and I guess the biggest way of knowing that, the measure, the litmus test, is that I get referrals from those folks when they tell their friends, hey, you got to hire Dave. That's a very good pat on my back.
So spend a brief moment telling us a little bit about your backstory then, Dave, and especially your formal education and your experience as it relates to the topic of family law.
Well, I started out studying music at the University of North Texas, but then I decided to become a psychologist instead. And I practiced child psychology in the schools for about 11 years. And then along that way, for 18 years, I taught at a university or college around Texas, the area, Dallas, and then Houston. And so I've been a college professor for about 18 years. I quit doing that in 2014. And then I went to law school in 2003, been a lawyer since 2006. And I enjoy doing that very much.
So, Dave, both you and I know nobody gets married to end up getting divorced. However, it is reality. It is something that happens. So before I ask you to close out with your final thoughts, just share some quick fire bullet points of the things that people need to be looking for when they are considering taking on the services of a family law attorney. What are some of the things they need to look out for? What are some of the warning signs, red flags, etc.?
Well, first of all, look at the reviews. See how other people have been rating them. There's all kinds of sites like AVVO, Martindale Hubbard, Yelp, Google. Look at those reviews. Sometimes clients get mad for nefarious reasons and they write bad things, but whatever. That's a good place to start. Second, when you talk to the attorney, talk about how will you represent me? What is your philosophy about representing clients? Find out how they interact. This is I tell my clients, you're either going to love me or hate me, but it's important that you choose which one it is, because it is we have a very intimate relationship when you're a lawyer and a client, especially in cases like that. And thirdly, find out about how they do their billing. Get that up front. Understand how lawyers charge and how that's going to affect the cost of their case. Get that stuff up front. A lot of lawyers, you'd be surprised, aren't really forthwith with sharing that kind of information. And thirdly, you want to know how this person is going to apply the facts of the case to the law and how they're going to represent you. And a lot of lawyers like to do predictions, and I don't think that's very wise to do that. I tell them I do the very best I can. I kind of predict what I think the outcome might be based on the facts, and we go from there. But I think most clients are looking for honesty and integrity with their lawyers, and they want to know that lawyer knows what they're doing. But if I had to ask, 9 out of 10 people would say this: the most important characteristic in their lawyer is they have to know that lawyer cares about them and is going to do everything they can to help them through this crisis that they're going through. And I think you can't underrate that enough. That has to be one of the most important concepts. I'm going to take care of you. Don't make promises you can't keep, except the promise I'm going to take care of you. And I think most people are looking for that in a lawyer, especially nowadays, where there's so many lawyers out there that seem to be only interested in getting paid and all that kind of stuff. You've got to have a lawyer that really cares about their client.
So for those individuals who are listening in right now, Dave, and they're considering taking on the services of a good family law attorney, what final thoughts would you like to share with them before we close out with our last question for today?
Sure. Just be honest when you're doing your consult with your prospective lawyer. Be honest. They can't make good decisions and help you about what's going on in your case if you don't tell them all the things, good, bad, the indifferent, whatever. Be honest. Always tell the truth to your lawyer. In Texas, the consultation is privileged communication anyway, so it's whatever you say to your lawyer is privileged as long as those certain things are met. So be honest with your lawyer. Secondly, tell your lawyer what your expectations are. And a good lawyer is going to say, yeah, okay, maybe not. Let's talk about that. That's what a consultation is all about, is to get to know the lawyer. And thirdly, be aware of the person's personality. That's going to go a long way. How does that person behave towards you? Do they seem honest? Do they seem to have integrity? Do they seem interested? I mean, I tell people I'm going to give them a 30-minute consultation, and 2 hours later I'm still in it. So, that's the kind of thing, you kind of grade a lawyer about. Are they willing to spend that time and really talk to that person and find out what's going on in that person's life so that they can really effectively represent them in the end? It's a long process, most of these contested cases. And so you're going to really get to know your lawyer. And so those are important issues, I think.
So, Dave, for those individuals who have been listening in and they find themselves in that situation where they're experiencing difficulty with their divorce or maybe fighting over custody for their children, and they're wanting to know more about finding a good family law attorney to represent their case, what would be the best way for them to reach you? How would they find you then, Dave?
Well, if you're in the North Texas area, I can be reached at my website at www.bungerlaw.com, or my phone number is 214-233-3400.
You got an email address that they can hit up as well, Dave?
I certainly do. It's dtbunger@bungerlaw.com.
Perfect. And I'll ensure that those contact details are on the website underneath your show. Unfortunately, Dave, we are out of time. The time has just flown so fast. I'm sure that you could share so much more. However, we do have to go. So as a reminder, ladies and gentlemen, today we have been listening to family law attorney Dave Bunger. Thank you so much for sharing so generously with us today, Dave. You have certainly demonstrated that you are a true educator, advocate, and trustworthy advisor for your client's success. So thank you.
Thank you for having me, Stewart. It's been a pleasure.
You are so welcome, Dave. And I'd also like to say a big thank you to you. Yes, you, the listener. Unfortunately, you may find yourself in that situation where you are experiencing difficulty in your relationship and you are considering options for divorce. If that's the case, then thank you for joining us on what I can only describe as a very useful, insightful, and informative discussion. We only have time for a 30,000-foot overview, but I'm sure after listening to Dave today that you feel a lot more comfortable about making a decision whether to pick up the phone and call him or not. So thank you for joining this discussion with one of the leading family law attorneys in the Dallas, Texas area. Again, his name is Dave Bunger. Make sure you do check him out. Give him a call, visit his website. He also shared his email address, so make sure you make use of that. Whatever you do decide to do, I'm sure that after listening to Dave today, you're going to be in good hands. So that's it for today, folks. My name is Stewart Andrew Alexander, and we'll be back shortly with some more leading family law professionals in this, our series of Let's Talk Divorce Conversations. So, until then, take care, have a great day, and we'll talk real soon.
Thank you for tuning in to Impact Makers Radio. To listen to all past, present, and future industry thought leaders and trendsetters, visit us at impactmakersradio.com.